I'm really glad to have followed that last presentation because I would like to complexify a little corner of it, that philanthropy does come in many forms, sometimes altruistic, sometimes not so much. And there are places, in fact, where the two are not very easy to distinguish. Over the last few years at Gallatin, I've been looking at this idea of economic development in the poorest parts of the world. And what are the origins of this idea? Where do they come from? And what does that mean for the way development is practiced today? Last year, I went to Mali, a West African sub-Saharan country. You can see the top third of the country is the Sahara Desert. And I got to do some research at this place, the Opus du Niger, that green little dot. The Opus du Niger is an agricultural scheme. Water is diverted from the Niger River, and it irrigates small farming plots where mostly rice is grown. And with that, and small family farmers pay a small fee for the usage of the water, and they grow rice paddies, and bada bing, bada boom. Just a few hundred miles from the Sahara Desert, we have rice paddies. Well, in the 1990s, there were a lot of reforms going on across Mali, economic reforms, mostly pushed by World Bank and IMF. Some of these reforms really affected the Opus du Niger in that policies were directed to attract industrial-style agriculture businesses to come and mechanize these farms. The problem with that was it was highly detrimental to a lot of people who've been living there for generations and generations and generations and generations. In fact, in 1996, there was a bad crop. Several families weren't able to pay their water fees, and because of this, they were automatically evicted. Rules became too strict. And in case of a bad crop, you're shit out of luck. So a lot of farmers organized, wanted to do something about this. They formed a labor union. They did so that this labor union could bring their grievances to the local government and hopefully make their voices heard. Well, they were not greeted with a smiling face at local government offices. They were greeted with the police. They suffered arrests, intimidation, violence. In fact, when I was there, 8 farmers were jailed for their demonstration. Well, in 2006, a new actor entered the scene, a very prominent American NGO. They had this idea that they wanted to, and I quote, modernize the agriculture that was going on there, especially on the land of a lot of local farmers who are part of this labor union. Now, what did this modernization mean for this NGO? Well, it meant mechanization of farming, and it meant especially instilling land titles, formal property rights. Now, a clash of ideas arose. The labor union did not want property rights, formal property rights, or land titles to be distributed. They had their own inheritance practices that have been going on for generations, and these practices ensure that land will not be given up or sold to a bank or sold to agro-industry that's interested in buying land. So their claim is that if you give us land titles, keep in mind this is one of the poorest countries in the world, according to any index you look at, been hovering around 3rd, 5th, 6th poorest country in the world, as long as indexes have even been available. So if you give these farmers who have very little access, in fact, no access to electricity or paved roads, and sometimes not even to clean water, if you give them land titles, the next day they're going to turn around and sell that. And their sons and daughters and their wives will not have a means of sustaining themselves for years to come, especially in a country where the unemployment rate is around 30%, something we can't even imagine. So we have this clash of ideas. This American NGO, which is well-funded, flies across the Atlantic all the time in first-class seats, is staffed by PhDs, and has the president of Mali on their speed dial, Amadou Toumani Touré. And then there's this labor union who has their own conception of what development means here, but they are not able to have that same kind of power. Especially when here's an example of a farm that I was staying at. Like you can see, as you can see, no electricity, no paved roads. How are they supposed to make their voices heard in all of this? So this clashing of conception of what economic development means in the poorest places, this clash of ideas and this power dynamic going on between an NGO, an American NGO, and a local labor union, this raises a lot of questions, as in, how do we conceive of what's a legitimate idea or a legitimate person to talk about development? How do how do we conceive of who has the authority to call themselves an expert? Which ideas are allowed within development discourses, and which ones are dismissed or flatly rejected? To answer these questions, I find it valuable to look back to the history of these development ideas. And with the Obis du Niger, we have an exemplary case. This was started as a colonial project in the 1930s by the French government. In fact, most development ideas, be it health, be it nutrition, be it education, building maternity clinics, have their origins in colonial projects at a time when French and British empires were not trying to develop their colonies out of the goodness of their heart, but to maintain empire. So I did some archival research in Mali and looked at this development scheme during the 1930s and 40s. Here are the colonial prescriptions on the left side, the main policy points that colonial experts wanted to get across, and here are the ones for the contemporary NGO that is working there now. They are almost identical. How do we explain, after 80 years, these ideas are still the prominent ones, and in a colonial setting or in a contemporary setting, where this NGO is not able to get its voice across, why do the people who development is supposed to affect still not have the most powerful voice in development decisions and development practice? You can see a trend in these questions. It has nothing to do with political representation, nothing to do with democracy. The answers, the questions that are asked are misposed. The questions that are asked are technical, not political. They have nothing to do with the political power of the people who are supposed to be developed. And this is because of development's origins from this colonial time period, when you were not even allowed to ask the tough, nitty-gritty political questions about power. You were forced to ask the technical questions about land rights, the ox-drawn plow, leguminous crops. That's all. Thank you.